Hey there. Welcome to episode 14 of the Golf Never Sleeps podcast. My name is Ryan Robillard. I'm a PGA of Canada golf coach. And on this podcast, I like to have conversations around the topics required to help you play and practice more efficiently with the ultimate goal of helping you shoot lower scores on the golf course. This episode is my first interview. Looking forward to getting into it. What I've done, this was a little bit of a longer interview, so I've broken it up into two parts and is with Dr. Andrew Mercer. Dr. Mercer is a certified chiropractor, but his expertise goes far beyond what we think when we hear the term chiropractor, neck cracking, and that kind of stuff. Dr. Mercer works out of a facility which is not far from me, which is called GPAR, Golf Performance and Rehabilitation. Dr. Andrew is one of the people on my team that I refer my students to, and he has helped me a lot with my own body, and I believe made me a lot better coach and just get me a better understanding of how people move. In this episode, we start off talking a little bit about his background, but then we kind of get into the nuts and bolts of what he does, what he sees in average players compared to some of the professional athletes that he works with. And then we also talked about a couple of the key things that he believes every golfer needs to do in order to play better golf. I hope you enjoy this episode. This is part one. Part two will drop next Tuesday. Enjoy. Or move an object at 80, 90, 100 miles an hour. Go drive in your Tesla right now, 90 miles an hour. Tell me how fast that's going. And that's how fast, right? Try to stick your head out the window. Exactly. And that's how fast we're trying to move our arms as we swing. Dr. Andrew Mercer, welcome to the Golf Never Sleeps podcast.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm very happy to have you. We're just coming off of a very filling lunch. I think realistically we should have probably had the camera going then as well.
We were really shooting the shit there for sure.
We were sharing some good info. But let's do this. Why don't we start off, tell us a little bit about yourself. I called you Dr. Andrew Mercer. What does that actually mean? Where are you from originally? Where'd you go to school? How'd you end up in Windsor, Ontario?
So essentially I am the first person of my entire family born in Canada. So that was pretty cool. Everyone else is from Scotland. So essentially moving here, we pretty much were in, I went to the University of Windsor for Human Kinetics. Early on in my athletic career, I pretty much learned that I wanted to pretty much do something with athletes. Didn't really know what that meant or anything like that. Going through all of my training through B.H.K, really observing a lot of different professions from chiro, physio, massage, athletic therapy, personal trainers, strength and conditioning coaches, everything like that. I decided that my route was going to be chiro, and pretty much the main reason why was that I ended up essentially going through and noticing that the scope of practice for chiro was so diverse, and I can essentially make my practice whatever I want it to be. Doesn't have to be anything from just like cracking your neck and telling you to go bugger off. It was more so like, you know, I can actually go ahead and work with athletes. I have athletes that come in and all I do is like literally do some strength conditioning and personal training on them. And then maybe I do some fascial stretching on them, where I can do some acupuncture, dry needling, electroacupuncture, cupping, whatever it takes to get somebody to their goals. And because of how diverse my scope of practice can be as a chiro, I can essentially tailor whatever we need for somebody based on their goals. So every day is different. That's what I really, really like. When I essentially got out of B.H.K, I was essentially applying to a little bit of everything. So I applied to med school, applied to law, applied to dentistry, applied to physio, applied to chiro, everything. And I was like, hey, the universe is just going to make my decision for me. Well, didn't expect to get into everything. So that kind of really screwed me up there. So that's what I really had to go and sit down and say, okay, now what I really got to do. So pretty much.
But you knew it was going to be something in athletics, right?
Essentially, yeah. Like I played pretty good football, played okay at hockey, played pretty good soccer. And then when I buggered up my knee, I essentially went and got my own personal exposure to all the different professions and just kind of found that, like I said, the biggest thing for me was the diverse scope that I could actually practice, and I could make whatever I want, right? Like I have people that come into me on a daily basis that have never seen a chiro before, and they're like, please don't adjust my neck. Please don't adjust my neck. I see these videos on TikTok. I see this, I see that. And I'm like, that's not at all what I do. I mean, I can, but I'm not going to go ahead and just go crazy, right? So that kind of led me to open up my practice, G-Bar, Golf Performance and Rehab in Kingsville, Ontario, there right at the golf course. And that was one thing that, obviously we specialize in golfers. You and I have worked for a few years now, even together, just like collaborating. And for me, it's more so I get to help out people with something that they really, really, really enjoy, but also seeing the impact it makes in their everyday life. Everything from being able to lift their kids up again to do something to, you know, being able to actually, this is one thing that actually is super sappy, but being able to actually go on one knee to propose to their partner.
Yep. That's
one thing that's really, really cool too, right? Having somebody that was unable to do that from a hip and a knee replacement to be able to actually propose, and that was really heartwarming. Almost made me cry even just now just talking about it.
Yeah,
but,
it's you know, it's unfortunate. Unfortunate because there are so many people that have a lot of things wrong when it comes to the ability to move, and you touched on a couple of things there that are like really non-golf, and I guess that I oftentimes think about it from the scope of golf specifically, but I believe that a couple of things you said that were really interesting, like that first part being what you do and how diverse it is, the type of people that you see on a daily basis, from professional athletes to 70-year-old golfers that move poorly, and also the different, I guess, range of treatment options that there are, where what you said was spot on, I think, and even sometimes when I try to explain to people who you are, when I say I want to set you up with Andrew, they ask who is he? I'm like, oh, he's a chiropractor. And all of a sudden it's like they have this idea in their mind where they're going to lay on the table and they're just going to get their neck cracked. Yeah. And even in the time that we've spent together working on my body, every single time that I'm in there, it's something very different in terms of exercises or different options that we have and ways that you're getting me to move a lot better. And I believe that there's a big time stigma around what people think going to a chiropractor. They associate, I've been in a car accident, I have to go to a chiropractor. Not I'm a golfer that wants to make better contact, and it might actually not start on the driving range. It might actually start working with a doctor first, get my body organized. You referenced a list of sports that you played. I didn't hear golf in there.
I didn't grow up playing golf at as high of a level as I don't think I'm a high level golfer. I can swing the club fast.
You're a high speed swinger.
When it comes to golf, that's something that my grandfather actually, when he was in Scotland, was actually a pro golfer in Scotland. Okay. So he actually played back then, I guess, with guys like Jack Nicklaus and
really.
You know, so he played back then. But nobody got paid unless your name was Jack Nicklaus or Arnold Palmer, right? Like you're paying more money to enter in these tournaments and not spending time with your family and paying your way into these tournaments. It's not really sponsorships really back then as much as they are like now, right? So for him, he was, and you know me as kind of a big stats guy. I'm a big numbers nerd, right? Yeah. I love numbers. If I can see a certain number and try to improve that number, I take pride in that. Whether that be somebody being able to deadlift more or being able to hit the ball farther, whatever it might be, I like that. So for him, he was probably one of the smartest people when it comes to numbers I've ever seen. He was a human calculator. So for him, he actually got scouted to come to Canada, and essentially at that point to work with the CRA, and his golf career pretty much went into the shitter.
You're coming here to do a different type of work.
Yeah, exactly, right? So he kind of taught me a little bit of, you know, playing a little golf, but like when I was a tyke, he was so removed from the game that like, you know, even if you take like 3-4 weeks off with your traveling and something, you're going to be rusty when you come back, or you might end up playing so much better because you're so relaxed. That's the beauty of the game, right? Sometimes it's the harder you try, the worse you are. Even just talking about about even my experience with the club championship this year, right? But even talking about our club championship earlier on in our day here today, it's amazing. So, but I do consider myself a golfer. I don't consider myself a great golfer, despite the fact that I treat a lot of golfers. I mean, the whole like, if you can't play, teach thing kind of really resonates with me when it comes to golf.
Yeah. Those who can't play, teach. I also fall in that category as well. Hey, I hope you're enjoying this podcast episode. If you are, I have a favor to ask. If you're watching on YouTube, please make sure that you subscribe to this channel, like this video, and make sure you hit that bell to make sure you get notified on when a new episode drops. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you listen to your podcasts, please make sure you subscribe there as well. But if you could leave me a rating, wherever you're listening or watching, if you do those things for me, it really helps the podcast grow and also motivates me to put out more content. And as always, on any platform, if you ever have any questions, please reach out, let me know. I answered every comment. Now let's get you back to your episode. So I guess I find it interesting, though, that now, and I know that you work with hockey players and some other athletes as well as just kind of average people. I guess it's interesting that now the business that you run is literally called GPAR, which stands for Golf Performance and Rehabilitation. So I want to kind of draw a little bit on your experience. You've obviously spent a lot of time around a lot of different sports, and you've spent a lot of time and probably a lot of time lately with golfers. There's a lot of people, and I know that this continues to change, but a lot of people often make the statement like that golf is not a real sport. You don't have to be fit to play golf. You don't have to move well to play golf.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
I know this as an instructor, and I know that you and I both come from the TPI world and definitely drink their Kool-Aid in terms of what they're all about, and we're both huge proponents. Are golfers athletes in your mind?
Oh, 100%. You have to be athletic. It's like with pickleball now. People are picking up pickleball now as a new fad, right? So I see it all the time. We're in an area you have the big three for automotive, right? These people will work 30, 35 plus years doing the same thing every day and just wearing their bodies down. And then they're like, yeah, I'm going to retire and I'm going to go golf 3, 4, 5 times a week. Yeah. And like try to play that. And then if somebody retires in the spring, by not even actual official summer, June 22nd, am I actually seeing them they buggered up something.
For sure.
You know, it's super sad because the amount of physicality that's required in this sport is huge, especially if you're committed to walking. Like if you're go ahead and you're gonna essentially, like I don't know about you, I mean if I'm spraying it all over, I'm getting like 15 to 18,000 steps in a round, right? Like anywhere. Even if I'm in a good round, I'm probably trying to help somebody find their damn ball, right? So for me, it's you need to be able to just walk. If you can't go ahead and do that, and you want a cart, go ahead, sure. But then if you're gonna try to move yourself in these extreme fast positions into awkward postures, you need to be able to just move. And that's a big proponent of what we preach over at GPAR. I might not be able to move the way that a gymnast can move, right? But I can move a heck of a lot better for what I need to accomplish in my golf game,
right?
And in my sports that I've played in the past, right? So something as simple as getting in and out of golf posture, or even getting in and out of that golf cart, can be difficult for some people, but yet they think swinging their club 80 plus miles an hour is not an athletic feat. Well, name anything else you do outside of golf that you're actually doing at 80 miles an hour. I'm not coming into my house and going with the door and busting it open, right?
That's not how quickly you open the fridge. You're not rotating your upper body at 1,000 degrees a second to open the fridge.
No, definitely not.
Not even on football Sunday.
You know what? Well, on football Sunday, it's more so I open the door to order some chicken wings and stuff. So that might be a little different. But yeah, like that. So when people say you don't need to be an athlete to play this game, like it's to me, it almost like I'm just waiting for them to come see me and pay me money to help them, because if they think that they don't need to be athletic to play this game, it's a huge misconception.
Well, and oftentimes, like some of the most common faults we see, whether even just be as simple as poor setup posture or sway or slide, loss of posture, early extension, like on the lesson tee or on the golf course, I see that all the time, and I'm assuming you see that all the time as well. And sometimes even just the explanation to someone, it's like, name anything that we do in our daily life that is done in that posture, like any movement at all that is required to be in that posture. And another thing that we add in as well is anything that involves that much rotation.
Yeah.
Your lower body, your pelvis is rotating, your upper body is rotating, and especially we're not standing straight up and down. we're on a little bit of an incline asking ourselves to do that. And it's amazing sometimes, or oftentimes, when we start to talk about terms like how to use our hips, how to use our feet in the way that they feel on the ground, and how to get a player to understand what a certain amount of rotation feels like, activating muscles they normally don't activate. And then they'll make this comment like, oh, I've never felt that before. And oftentimes I think back to the person who says that they don't feel that golf is necessarily a sport, or it's not that hard to play golf, or it's not that hard to stay in good shape playing golf. But if they don't know how to rotate their hips, or if they've never disassociated their upper from their lower body, I'm watching that person going like, I'm about to watch a car accident here, because they're going to hurt themselves. And I think, like you said, where that person wants to do something or move an object at 80, 90, 100 miles an hour. Go drive in your Tesla right now, 90 miles an hour. Tell me how fast that's going. And that's how fast, right? Try to stick your head out the window. Exactly. And that's how fast we're trying to move our arms as we swing. So like, I honestly believe the stress that we put on our body, and I guess I'm asking you this as a question, the stress we put on ourselves as golfers on our body, I feel has got to be pretty darn equivalent to the stress we put on our body in a lot of other sports before we introduce contact, let's say in hockey. But like, if you're playing basketball, if you're playing volleyball, if you're playing hockey, you're changing different directions, you're applying forces, things are rotating in a very fast pace. I don't think people consider that, or they don't associate that the way that we're forcing our body to turn and fire up and change directions is just as hard on our body.
It's honestly, I would argue that it's even more hard to be able to kind of do this, because you're essentially going from, whether you're walking or karting, from 0 to literally 100, like real damn quick, you know? So for me, just, it's not even so much about the pure athletic ability to be able to move that much. It's about being able to have that mind-body connection to coordinate this movement. Right? Like we were saying, I don't move 100 miles an hour to open my fridge handle, but if I wanted to try to go grab my fridge handle at 100 miles an hour, I'm probably missing it or ripping that door off, right? And then I'm going to have a whole other problem with my wife when she gets home, explaining to her why I tried to rip off that door handle.
Right. So then let's go down this avenue then, because this is another one where a lot of players, and I think sometimes especially some older demographics, their belief is, okay, to play golf, I just have to make sure that I stretch. I'm assuming or I know you're an advocate of, like, obviously being able to have a certain amount of mobility and stability is required. We could spend a whole podcast talking about the importance of warming up, but I'm assuming I'm stating the obvious here when we both believe that anyone who wants to perform at a high level should be warming up before the round of golf. What I want to dive into a little bit, I think oftentimes people that do stretch and that do some mobility work, they just stop there. For the intensity of our move, where does strength training come into golf?
Oh, okay, this is a fun question. So, short answer, it is a huge part of it.
I don't want the short answer, right? This isn't an Instagram reel. This is a podcast, right? I'm not asking for a tweet here.
Yeah. Oh, man. So, essentially, when it comes to strength training, there's so many different ways that you can kind of look at it. When you're looking at stretching, for example, I'll pretty much go down this road first before I get into strength training. The biggest thing you're doing when you're stretching, you're not stretching at high speeds typically, right? A lot of times people are just holding a stretch for 10, 15, 20 seconds. There's very rarely that I'm telling my golfers to, even when they're stretching, even on the range, to hold that stretch pre-round, right? Like, are you going to be taking 20 seconds for your swing? You might take 20 seconds doing your analyzing your lie and doing this, analyzing the line of something, but you're not going to do that. So when it comes to strength training, you need to be able to help that strength training properly, either in a monitored setting or having somebody that's trained to be able to teach you how to move properly, which is a big proponent of strength training, to be able to help your body build that extra little bit of muscle, to build that extra little bit of coordination, to do movements that don't always have to be similar to the movement of the golf swing, right? But being able to build the muscles that are just stabilizing your body during the golf swing, right? If I have somebody that comes in that has a very, very, very weak hip, but their hip can move like all the way completely around, that a lot of the times ends up leading to injury just as much as not being able to move. right? And I see that in a lot of our women that I go ahead and I work on, right? They have so much mobility, but they can't stabilize, especially when they start getting high speeds. They can't stabilize their body to decelerate just as much as they're able to accelerate, right? So you need to be able to have proper muscle stability or strength to be able to kind of do that. They do kind of go hand in hand. So when it comes to strength training, we're kind of getting to that time right now in the season, right? We're getting to the off season. It's kind of like the third phase, I would say, of the season, right? That tail end, trying to get as much little golf as possible. The OUAs and everything is pretty much going through and competing right now for the college and university golf right now. But once it gets to the off season, like that is super crucial. Like we need to make sure that if you want to develop, you need to make sure your body is right. And I think personally, you need to get trained by somebody that knows what they're doing. I love TPI personally. I know you do as well, because you need to be able to test the body first to be able to then create appropriate goals for whatever you want to accomplish. If I'm coming in and I say, you know what, the weakness of my game was my long game, right? Maybe that's just a straight swing speed thing. We need to teach you some speed training. We need to then complement that speed training with getting some strength, or else you're going to hurt yourself when you're putting those excess loads on yourself. And in all honesty, a lot of the stuff that we'll do from a strength training standpoint will really affect you in your everyday life, especially if you're not used to it, right? Like something as simple as going through and me teaching you how to squat or deadlift or do these different powerful movements or jump or whatever. You're going to probably be sore going up and down the stairs for a little bit until your body gets used to that. That's a huge part where people just a lot of times give up.
Yeah,
like you'll see people January 1st getting a gym membership. And by January 15th, they're out of it because, you know what, they're like, I'm way too sore, I went too hard. And that's where load moderation is so key. You want to have a gradual progressive overload for that strength training based on the goals that you're trying to accomplish. If your goals, in my perspective, let's say you can swing it 125 miles an hour, you have that potential. It's probably not so much at that point, maybe a strength standpoint they need to go ahead and do. It might be more of a stability standpoint. You might not be able to consistently perform at that high swing speed, but you can have the potential. I've even fallen in that category, right? Where I can have a high swing speed, but can I make that consistent? Maybe not. Maybe I need to then at that point train my body to withstand these loads and being able to strength train, maybe even combine a little bit of speed and strength into it. Something as simple as going through and doing, let's say, a row or a push with rotation of some sort. Maybe I'll do that at higher speed, lower reps. Right? Yeah.
I think something you said there that I think kind of hit, if we're not assessing, we're guessing.
Yes,
and I think
huge.
Oftentimes we'll have players at this time of the year are identifying, I want to hit the golf ball farther, or my long game wasn't very good this year. And without seeing anyone, they're going to make a guess. Okay, I need to get a stronger upper body. And they work, they do all the push-ups, they do all the bicep curls, they do all the bench press that they can, and then they get out there next year and they hit no further. Because they didn't see an expert and they made essentially a pretty brutal miscalculation in terms of what needs to get stronger.
Yeah.
I also think oftentimes that January 1st gym analogy, we fall victim to we want it all now. And I know that January 1st is a fantastic start date, and I know that we talked about this a little bit over lunch. The off-season can start now. Right? We can start making changes. Yes, we're at the end of September, but for most players, especially if your competitive season is done, or if you're done playing all your meaningful matches, your league's over, whatever it is, you can start now. And I think it'd be a lot different if someone went to someone and actually had a plan in place, or instead they wake up on January 2nd, they've Googled the get a six-pack in 6 weeks, and they go to do that workout, and they're so sore because they just went from 0 to 100. That's like, this sucks, I quit.
Yeah.
As opposed to looking at this as actually kind of quite similar to helping someone improve their golf game. I'm not going to take a player that shoots 100 to shoot 70 in a month. We're going to learn how to break 90. We're going to learn how to break 85, so on and so forth. And I believe a lot of times it's just the absence of structure. It's the absence of of maybe being told this is what the next 6 months are actually going to look like.
Yeah.
And I believe that's why I think I continue to get success with players more often that I see on a year-long basis than a when they want basis. Mm-hmm. And I think also as I'm sending players to you, I know that they're going to you and they're leaving you with an assessment of what the problem is, a roadmap on how to fix that problem, and how long this could possibly take.
Yeah.
And I hope that for the people that are listening today, the thing that they have to take away is they have to seek an expert. They have to get someone on board that they trust or that they believe in order to get them on the right track.